The one name that I think touched a lot of people in a good way was Marco Rubio, because I think a lot of people have gotten to know who he is now that he's been a senator for a couple of terms, that he had run for president in 2016. And I think people remember the odd interactions that he had with President Trump, but how he was able to build a relationship with him. And Marco Rubio has a different style, one that is, I think, better for someone to serve as their sort of the chief diplomat, the Secretary of State. But he's a guy who's really lived through. I mean, he's really started with nothing, right? With immigrant parents from Cuba who did menial work. They worked very hard to make sure that their son could, be educated and be a success in the United States. So he has that humility that I think is important, but he also has a really nice manner that will make him a really good pick. And even Democrats and Republicans have said that that was a great pick. Now, some of the other ones, maybe not so much.
Yeah, we'll get to some of the other ones. But, Gabbard, and of course you mentioned Mark Rubio, but also, there are others in there that are young. J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect, is that
Right.
I think he understands, he's got a job to do. But I have found this to be a part of, I think, my success. I've always surrounded myself with, whether it be my children or producers, letting them interact, letting them add content. That kind of keeps you balanced as far as what's happening in the world. And I think having some of those young voices in there is really going to help him accomplish some of the things he wants to do. Because, as you know, within 2 years, they're going to be talking about 2028. So he's got to get to work right away. And I think that's going to be a recipe of success, having some younger people surrounding him in his cabinet.
I agree with you. I think I was pretty excited to see a lot of the younger people. Granted, I think with age often comes wisdom. And so some of the older people that he has in the cabinet, or at least he's nominated, will be very valuable. I think you just need a mix. He went from a really, in my view, bad pick in Congressman Gates for Attorney General, a guy who really has zero experience, almost no experience practicing law, and then zero experience as an administrator of a bunch of lawyers who are in the business of representing the government, prosecuting. It made really no sense to me, and it seemed like it was like a finger in the eye of a lot of the people who serve in the Congress because of the way he doesn't really have a good relationship there. But, when he quickly took himself out, probably at Trump's urging, I would guess, and found someone who I thought was a perfect and obviously a pick who makes a lot of sense. And that's Pam Bondi, who served 2 terms as the Attorney General of the 3rd largest state in the United States, Florida. So somebody he's comfortable with because she's from Florida. She had worked with him and she had actually represented him after her Attorney General service when he was impeached. So they have a personal relationship. That is, lawyer-client. And she also obviously can manage a large office of lawyers because she's done it before. So I wish he would have just nominated her in the first place, right? But, Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump, and he's going to do things his way.
Listen, I really loved Governor Huckabee, as in Sarah Huckabee, and I also am excited about Susie Wiles. That's the wow factor, if you will. Talk about her a little bit. She's a take charge kind of person, is she not?
Yeah, I wish I had met her. I've never met her, but from everyone I know who knows her, and I do know Chris LaCivita, who's a Pittsburgh native, by the way, who was, they were the 2-headed monster running that campaign, and clearly they are professionals. They're people who were much better able to focus on the things they needed to do to win this race, as opposed to what I saw as a pretty undisciplined campaign in 2020, and a very lucky and interesting campaign in 2016. But that combination of Chris, who's a really good political campaign strategist, and Susie, who really is an all-around organizational person, somebody who's very good at, eyeing up the prize and developing the path to get there. So I'm just thrilled that, first of all, that she was so successful in the race. Secondly, though, I think it's really great for the president to show his respect and his appreciation for her, and wanting her to stay, close as the chief of staff. That's a huge job. That's a really difficult job. But, that he trusts her to do that job is I think it's a real compliment. It is a real feather in her cap, and I think it's good for America because she's shown that she can direct him where he needs to be focused.
All right, Attorney Melissa Hart, one more segment. So honored to always have her on the airwaves, but especially talking about stuff that matters to all of us, and that's the transition of this administration. And I think a little experience is going to make him even stronger this time around, and I think you're seeing that as he's making these cabinet selections. Stay with us. It's your Pratt Pack tonight on KDK. The other story that broke before I got on the air today, and I talked to Joe Mystic about it, professor, of course, Thomas Klein School of Law, Duquesne University, earlier, and I got to get your thoughts. Special counsel moves to dismiss election interference in classified document cases against Trump. What do you make of that? And if so, could he eventually give himself immunity and all of this stuff once he gets back into office? Melissa.
Yeah, no, that had to come from the prosecutor. I think it's funny, and anybody who's followed this very closely, Jack Smith has kind of become I don't know, he's the Javert guy. He's the guy who just seems like he's got his man, and he's almost like an anti-hero. And going after Trump for the classified documents, he's the special counsel. He's like the guy appointed to get Trump. And for him today to go to court and to, file to withdraw these suits against him. The classified documents one, which, I think to most people is just a mystery. There really wasn't much there. And then when they found classified documents, right afterward with Vice President Pence, and then they found them with President Biden that he had from before when he was vice president. I mean, these things they're not something that people are prosecuted over. They do ask for them back. Trump was being obstinate. I understand that, but it is not a very useful court case. So that one itself just needed to be tossed aside. Now, the other one is dealing with some of the issues of the 2020 election interference and those questions. I think that we've put that to bed. I mean, when you look at the results of this year, I'm part of a group called the Democracy Defense Project. It is a nonprofit that is bipartisan. The state board in Pennsylvania is Ed Rendell and me, and a gentleman named Keith McCall, who was the Democrat Speaker of the House at one point, and also former Congressman Jim Gerlach, who's a Republican. So it's 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. And we were basically watchdogs on the election, but we are also making suggestions to the legislature about ways to make our elections go more smoothly. Keep in mind that 2020 election was an election with a brand new system. It was also an election that happened during a pandemic. The public was disconcerted to begin with, uncomfortable to begin with. People didn't understand the voting by mail. It was all brand new. And for people to have raised questions after that election about whether it was actually run properly and people who were legitimate voters were the only people who voted, those are fair questions to have asked. I understand that President Trump litigated this too long and too hard and really alienated a lot of people over that case. But for Jack Smith to be prosecuting it now, this many years later, it just showed that it was all designed to interfere with this election in 2024, and it was inappropriate. And so withdrawing both of those cases, and basically that special counsel is out of a job.
Do you think
that's fine?
You think maybe now that he realizes that the big dog's back on the front porch, that he may be just a little concerned now? I think winning the election has got his attention, wouldn't you think?
I think it definitely got people's attention. It got everyone's attention, not just that special counsel, but also the attorney general and others. I still, there's still those state cases, one in Georgia, one in New York State, that are kind of ridiculous. The question is, are those cases also going to go by the wayside? I expect that they will. They might try to put them on ice for 4 years, but that would just be, being obstinate and just being, extremely partisan, as those cases really were in the first place. They aren't cases that were brought against other people who may have acted in the same manner. This was all a get Trump by design, I believe. Those cases just all over the place that were, especially Letitia James, Attorney General of New York. She has made so many public statements that she has personal animosity It just really isn't appropriate for her to be filing these cases.
So let me just say this, and this is me talking, and this is not you, but I saw something earlier tonight with Andy Sheehan talking to Corey O'Connor, the controller of Allegheny County, dear friend as his father was, about the possibility of him running for mayor. And he did not confirm, but it's out there. And, I've been thinking because of Joe Rocky and what's happening with this property tax situation, Sarah Innamorato, a lot of respect for her. Going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow when I'm in from 2 to 6 for Colin Dunlap. So let me ask you tonight. If somebody in the Republican Party of Allegheny County said, would you ever consider running for county executive? Recently lost Jim Roddy, member of the Republican Party, used to head the Republican Party up in Allegheny County. Would that interest you at this stage in your life? I have to ask.
No.
No?
No, that's easy. No.
Didn't take long, did it?
No, first of all, I'd have to remain in Allegheny County, Rob.
I know. Well, I'm just thinking, you know what I mean? You do real estate transactions, you could get it done. But
right.
Let's get...
Yeah, I still live here.
I know. Just, we need you, so stay right where you're at. Okay, so back to some of these cabinet selections. That's why they pay me to ask these questions. But
no, that's fair.
Okay. Robert Kennedy Jr., his own family kind of disowned him. The Democrats didn't give him a seat at the table. He's highly intelligent. Some say a little out there, but we all are at times. I like his chutzpah. I like who he is. I love that family. For whatever reason, I do. But Isn't it amazing how sometimes things are meant to happen? I'm not saying he's going to do anything major because of this, and I see the loyalty in President Trump. But isn't it ironic? This is just a major example of how unique the world is and how we're living in such unique times. The Democrat that the Kennedys are known for, now you have a guy who tried to run as a Democratic candidate, but he's going to serve a Republican president in a very important role. What do you make of that?
I would like to think that people, the voters, are looking at the individual more than they're looking at the party. Now, this last election results kind of tell me the opposite. But the people who were elected, say, look at Donald Trump, he's looking at who, first of all, who could help him, right, when he was a candidate. And when Robert Kennedy decided to support him, I think that said a lot, not just that he wanted to see Trump win over Kamala Harris, but he also had ideas that he shared with his party that were just summarily rejected. But when he shared these ideas with President Trump, they were not. So he shows himself to be more of an open-minded person, less partisan, and more interested in solving the problems that people have. And I think that's why he won the election, to be honest, because you have the dogma of the left that seemed to kind of go off the rails a bit. And, you're starting to hear some pundits on the left say, maybe they went a little overboard. Yeah, they went a lot overboard. But they didn't listen to the practicalities that were raised by Robert Kennedy Jr., things that he's been doing as an attorney. And I've actually read up a little bit on some of the cases that he took as an attorney. And a lot of them were the kinds of cases where, a town may be contaminated by a plant that was there, and taking the case on behalf of the people who live in the town, doing the kind of things that, yeah, sure, they might make him a lot of money if he wins, but they're hard cases, and it takes a lot of time on the ground and really caring about people in order to make those cases work. He strikes me in the family mold as a person who really wants to do good and really wants to make a difference. I don't really understand why some members of the family have disowned him. It's not all of the members, by the way.
No.
Not disowned him or rejected his campaign. It's not all of them. And it's, some of the ones that are more famous and may depend on traditional Democratic politics. So I'm going to push that aside and say, this is a guy who has some ideas that a lot of people may find a little out there, but he also has a lot of ideas, especially if you've heard him talking about our nutrition and how so many more people are ill with these different diseases now. And we're supposed to be more healthy now. We're supposed to know more, yet we're sicker. Why is that? He wants to get drilled down and figure out what's wrong, and believes that a lot of that is caused by the food we eat. I think it's really important that America and Americans understand the truth. And if we have a leader like him involved in Trump's cabinet that wants to get to the truth and get us really eating healthier, not fake eating healthier,
Mm-hmm.
I'm all in. I'm actually really excited to see some of the things that he may find as he pursues that position. Now, there's a really interesting team I see, in the health area. It's very exciting. So, having Dr. Oz, having Jacob Bhattacharya, I think he also invited to be part of one of the organizations. And this is the guy who, during COVID, is a physician who questioned the way we were responding to COVID, and he ended up getting canceled. He was censored off television. He was, kind of shut down, but he kept on with his research with this group of physicians. And now, and after, after the pandemic, a lot of what he had said originally was borne out to be true. Mm-hmm. Real scientists who follow the evidence, not follow what a pharmaceutical company wants them to do, not follow what some government official wants them to do, but actually follow the real evidence and get us real answers. And I think it's important. And people who aren't really married to one party or the other are the ones who are, I think, more likely to go ahead and find us answers.
Thank you. You're the best. I could listen to you all night, and one of these nights I'm going to have you in here for a full hour and let you do what you do. So keep up the great work, practicing what you do, that incredible law, and also your opinion matters, okay?
Thank you. You have a great Thanksgiving. It's good to be with you all the time.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving to one and all, and of course, former Congressman Melissa Hart.